Call David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And the National Party opposes this bill, and the main reason is that, you know, you got a problem over there, mate? Yeah. No, the problem in the party, no. Well, Mr Speaker, I will indulge in the opposition for a little while, and I think the first thing to indulge in is the Green Party. The Green Party has never been right when it comes to fossil fuels. I remember the Green Party used to stand in this House and talk about peak oil. Peak oil was the big thing the Green Party had. They said that oil would run out. That was the big thing of the Green Party 10 years ago. Look through any speech on that side of the House and they mention peak oil day after day. What has happened to the oil market? Tell us about peak oil now. Tell us about the Green Party and your amazing vision of how the oil market would work out. Tell us about the Green Party and your understanding of economics. Tell us about the Green Party and what actually happened in the oil market, because, Mr Speaker, oil has never been cheaper. Oil will never be cheaper. It will get probably cheaper in the future, but it is at a very cheap point at this time because there is a plentiful supply of oil. There is no such thing as peak oil. The Greens were wrong. The Greens misled the New Zealand public and the world for many years talking about peak oil. And when we look at the Green Party, they have never been right when it comes to cars, transport and oil. I remember that we had the Road User Charges Amendment Bill in this House just a few years ago. And I spoke on that bill and I said, this is a good bill for New Zealand and it's important that we support electric cars going forward. The Green Party abused that speech. They said that electric cars had no future in New Zealand because they did not see them then becoming relevant in this country in the near future. The Green Party was wrong once again when it comes to transport and fossil fuels and those kind of issues. And we will wind you up, yes, the speakers from the Green Party, because you have never been right in this area. And how could we trust them then to pick the economic things that we should invest in for our superannuation funds? What would we give the Green Party the ability to determine what New Zealand should invest in for the superannuation of our future citizens, for the ACC payments of our future citizens? Can we trust those people to make the right economic decisions on investments in those areas? Because they surely haven't got it right in regard to oil in the past. They surely haven't got it right in regard to electric cars in the past. And they will never get it right because they are based on fundamentalist economic socialist policy that will never work. And that socialism will never work because, here we come, yes, that's true. And I say to that party there, if you are right, then come to this House. But don't come to this House if you are completely wrong, as you have been in the past in this area, because it's important that we invest in the roads of New Zealand. It's important that we have electric cars, and it's important that we have an economy going forward, because there is no such thing as peak oil. There is no such thing as an oil market that is going to disintegrate. Well, Mr Speaker, we're getting from the other side climate change coming from that member. And that member is a new member of this House. And as leader, I remember the first 6 or 7 questions that he made in this House were all about the climate. And then the polls went down for the Green Party. When they lost 2% in the polls, then he went back to the economic policies of Russell Norman and attacking the rest of the country in other ways. We haven't seen climate change questions from that member in this House recently, have we? No, he's given up on climate change because he's gone away from it because he knows he's losing in the polls and he's going away from the traditional things that the Green Party should stand for. So it's pretty rich for the Green Party come in this House and talk about climate change tonight when they won't even ask questions in question time about climate change because they've given up on it because they know that they can't do what they want to do in the public eye.
A point of order.
Mr Speaker, the member has been speaking for at least 5 minutes, I think, and he hasn't even touched on the content of the bill.
I think thank you for your point of order. I think you'll find that there was some graceful brush with the bill early on, but I take up the member's point of order and suggest to the member who has the call he'd like to be a little bit closer to the bill in his delivery and contribution.
Well, Mr Speaker, the bill basically says that the Green Party would make a direction to the ACC Fund, the New Zealand Superannuation Fund and the Government Superannuation Fund on where to invest. And the Green Party has been shown to be incorrect in any of its potential determinations in regard to this area in the past. And that is the point I am making. We cannot trust them to make investment decisions because they have always been wrong. And they will always be wrong because they are guided by ideology rather than looking at what investments are in the best interests of New Zealanders going forward. And that is something that we must be aware of, and that is the heart of why National will oppose this bill, because they are an independent body, the things like the Superannuation Fund, and the last thing we need is 10 members of the Green Party that have never done a day's work in their life making decisions about what actually New Zealanders should have their money invested in. And that is the problem when you
The member's getting a bit repetitious. I suggest he finds some new material or sit down.
But I'd like to also mention that all the public funds in New Zealand have a responsible investing program, which is closely aligned with the United Nations principles for responsible investment, which you'd think the Green Party would support, because being a big supporter of the UN, of course. And so there's been a long history of involvement and investment in things that are in the nature of climate change and risk in that area. And so there is a responsibility now upon those investment vehicles to take into account these issues. There has been a long history of involvement with many of the organisations that are involved in that area, and the independence of those funds cannot be compromised by a bill like this in this House. Mr Speaker, the Green Party has and always will be wrong in this area. We do not need to give the Green Party the power to make the wrong decisions when it comes to New Zealanders' money. That's hard-earned money that New Zealanders need for their retirement, and we cannot trust them. We should never trust them, and it's in the best interest of New Zealand that this bill does not pass. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Thank goodness. Here we go.
Dr. Megan Woods.